Welcome to the den, and there's been a conversation on social media about PlayStation, and not just PlayStation. They are questioning if the PlayStation 5 is the worst launch of a PlayStation console. And I'd have to say yes. As you may or may not know, I am somewhat of a doomer when it comes to gaming of today. Sometimes you get gold like Hi-Fi Rush, then the next you get a bunch of slop like Horizon Forbidden West or Last of Us 2, or the copy and paste genre of Metroidvania games with the same themes. And not just those games, indie games have a lot of this slop. But back to the point, PlayStation used to be such a great, innovative, creative system. We used to get games like Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, the old Giga Chad God of War games. This is where we played one of the greatest games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, fucking Snake Eater. We used to even get movie tie-in games like Lord of the Rings, to those great 007 games, to The Matrix and more. PlayStation today is using a lot of these same franchises like God of War and turning them into a super action-like, quirky game that makes Anthony Birch get a hard-on over. We used to see the most insane combos from God of War. We used to have a good camera, fluid movement, great transitional animations, and button transition to smooth out combos. Now, all we get is a story about some shitty, crappy kid we hate, filled with a bunch of Greek gods that sound like theater kids. Like, Odin literally sounds like a nerdy Jewish man. A lot of these games on the PlayStation 5 are filled with over 20 hours of slop and filler work, and the other half is almost too much cutscenes to gameplay that feels like the last thought in development. Going into Spider-Man 2, it feels like the dumbest thing to make. Nothing but cringy, useless filler side quests, and a hopeless open world. I'd rather honestly hop on Web of Shadows and play a side quest with Wolverine or Luke Cage or even Black Cat, instead of doing these awful Spider-Man 2 quests. Feels like this game caters way more into the MCU than the comics or even great Spider-Man TV shows we loved. And not only that, Peter Parker is a shell of his former self. Mary Jane missions again? Really?
Holy mother of Jesus! She's a man. I went to second base with a damn Frenchman. It's the crying games. I'm Brokeback Carter. Oh.
Into just her horrendous model in game we have to look at constantly. Don't get me started on Miles Morales. With that fucked up haircut and him just being in the game makes me want to vomit. We already have Peter. We do not need a copy-paste worst version. It's lazy, and that's just what Marvel is today, lazy. I can honestly say this is by far the worst PlayStation console, but it's not all bad. Games like Returnal and Astro's Playroom really make you feel like there's still great things out there, which there are, but it's hidden amongst so much slop that it makes you want to grab a 12 gauge and Kurt Cobain style your ass right in the mouth. I think the problem with gaming in general today is they do not know their audience. There's so much cool shit we could be doing today, but to the corporate greed, the activists in our hobbies, it feels like an endless tug of war. Companies are afraid to take risks because there's so much money in gaming. Companies are forced to make these cookie cutter games because monetization practices. If they were not so afraid, if money was not always the primary, we would get games like Breakdown, The Darkness, The Suffering, Second Sight, NFL Street 1, 2, NBA Street Volume 3, NBA Street Volume 2, a new Def Jam even, a Condemned, Billy Hatcher, Jak and Daxter, another Sly Cooper, Fight Night Round 3, remember that? Those amazing THQ games of the 2000s, games like Urban Reign to Beautiful Joe, Knights of the Old Republic, Brothers in Arms, Jade Empire, one of the greatest RPGs. There were so many games from the 2000s that were just so creative, so fun. So many of these games I just listed are so different from each other. Even NFL Street and NBA Street are completely different, while being part of EA Big. But also, it feels like back in the day, the hardware limitations is another reason for the creativity. No updates, you had to put out a game at its best, and if it's not, you will improve on a sequel. It also sucks that games today just do not have the music that it used to have. Like every racing game to sports game had an amazing soundtrack. Rap and rock just felt good, it melted together on a soundtrack. And then you have the fighting game music of Marvel vs. Capcom, all the way to the SSX soundtrack to the Tony Hawk games. Tony Hawk Underground, amazing. Music in the 2000s felt so much more expressive and well. They actually licensed good music back then for video games. And I know this has all been repeated before, where people will scream rose-tinted glasses, but honestly, get an emulator on PC or get an old console. See the difference for yourself. Because I'm still looking for a Condemned, The Suffering, a Def Jam, a Burnout, a Chrono Trigger, a Ninja Gaiden, Jak and Daxter, The Third Birthday. Where are all those games at? Where's the creativity at today? But my overall thought is, besides that gaming was just on another level back then, the PlayStation 5 is by far the worst PlayStation console. But never forget, there's always going to be some great games in the piles of shit of today. So play Returnal, play Astro's Playroom, play Ghost of Tsushima. But thanks for listening, and let me know how you feel about the PlayStation 5, and as always, get out.